Good morning and everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the members present here for today. Before we start the session, I request everyone to please rise for Institute motto and national anthem.
जागो सिंह गुजरात मराठा बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जगति तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय
भारत माता की welcome again, friends, and I request everyone to please keep your phone on silent mode. Friends, it's give me immense pleasure to welcome you all to yet another insightful session organized by our study circle, which is a platform that consistently bring knowledge, clarity, and updated practical insight in our profession. Friends, today's topic, practical issue in TDS, is not only relevant but extremely critical in our day-to-day practice. From compliance challenges to recent circulars, TDS continue to be an area where practical difficulties often arise and timely clarity is essential. To guide us through this vital subject, we are truly honored to have amidst as a very distinguished personality and Center Council member CA Piyush Chhajed, a name that needs no introduction in our professional fraternity, also in our study circle. Friends, his clarity of thoughts, practical approach, and deep involvement in the development of the profession make him the ideal speaker for today's session. Before we request our member CA Ankush Gupta to give a formal and brief introduction of him, दो शब्द में उनके लिए जरूर करना चाहूंगा कि ज्ञान की रोशनी से जो अंधेरा मिटा दे, प्रश्नों के जवाब जो तुरंत बता दे, व्यवहार में जो थ्योरी को जीवंत कर दे, वो सीए पीयूष जी हैं जो सब कुछ आसान कर दे. एंड I request CA Ankush Gupta to come and give.
A very good morning, friends. As our convener rightly told, CA Piyush Chhajed, he doesn't require any introduction. Of course, he is a beloved member of our JB Nagar study circle, and he is representing more or the less JB Nagar in ICI as the central council member. He is running his second term as a central council member. And I personally know Piyush since last 3 decades. So from college till sharing the same dais, we have come a long way. So I'll just give a very short introduction. जो मुझे लगता है शायद आप लोगों को ना मालूम हो उसके बारे में, मैं वही कोशिश करूंगा उतना बोलने की. Of course, he is a practicing chartered accountant with over 25 years of experience. He is a senior partner in a distinguished firm, Chhajed and Doshi. SP Chhajed ji ने बनाई थी, our past president. So he is leading that firm, and he is an expert in tax litigation and advisory. He is in various board running as a independent director in Wimplast Limited, Cello World, and Multibase Limited. In addition, his contribution extends to Reserve Bank of India, where he held a key role as member of External Advisory Committee for Asset Reconstruction Company. His contribution to WIRC publication, we all know विश्वास से विवाद स्कीम जब आई थी 2020, तो पीयूष का मेजर रोल था. उस जो बुक लिखी गई थी उसमें मेजर रोल पीयूष का था. And beyond this profession, he is also associated with many trusts as an independent director and trustee. So friend, I think with this very short and brief introduction, let us welcome him with a huge round of applause. And of course, before handing him the mic and giving him the stage, I would we will be presenting him with a memento, and I would request our past convener Jayesh Thakkar ji and Bhavesh bhai, please come forward for the same. Use please.
Thank you. Hey, call this mic. Call the mic there. Presentation जगह रिकॉर्डिंग है. गोया खड़े रहना जरूरी है कि बात चलेगा, घूमूगा चलेगा ना. और मेरे को ये दे दे रिमोट. Very good morning to all of you. Convener Kailash ji, Deputy Convener Lalit ji, Coordinator for the events today, and the past convener also Mahavir ji, Ankush Gupta, my friend, thank you for your wonderful introduction. School friend, college friend, whatever I can say. तो मैं सोच रहा था ये पेपर क्यों पढ़ रहा है, इसको तो ऐसे भी सब पता है. शायद इसको पेपर इसलिए पढ़ना था कि इसको बाकी बहुत कुछ पता है जो शायद यहाँ बताना नहीं था. Jayesh bhai, I could see the past conveners and the esteemed members of our fraternity, members of JB Nagar Study Circle. It's always a pleasure being over here. And I try to, even convener has been always kind to me to call me every year over here. And generally in month of June or July, generally I try to take a session. And always we try to take, I remember in last 3, 4 years, generally I was taking on Finance Act always. But this time we thought, and Kailash ji called me that what seminar, what we should talk about. Of course, reopening came to my mind, but I know in the second session somebody is already taking on reopening. And then I thought, why not TDS? Obviously, was some TDS lecture also in the last week also, but I don't know how much he had covered. So then I was in dilemma that what should I cover in TDS also. So what I've tried to do in my presentation is I've tried to make it a question answer or the issue wise, covering all the sections from section 192 to 192J, 192H, 192R. And then last, we'll also try to discuss the news section, which is applicable to all of us, TDS on partnership remuneration, which I think so a lot of issues are there and everybody is fighting with that. So before I go to my session, obviously being a Central Council member, being a chairman of Direct Tax Committee, and when I'm delivering a lecture on Direct Tax Committee, I think it would be my duty to update you on 2 or 3 important things which are happening. And a lot of people are also, whenever I go, people do ask me what's happening. What will happen to most important question today is whether the income tax bill will come in or not. So I'll just give you a brief background what income tax bill is, what the role direct tax committee has played, and what was the role of the Institute of Chartered Accountants since July 2024, when the Honorable Finance Minister announced, you may recollect in the budget speech itself, that we will do a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act with an 2 or 3 fold objectives. We'll simplify the income tax law, we'll make the language more easier with an objective that it can be apprehended by the layman. एक लेमैन को भी समझ में आ सकती है वैसी लैंग्वेज करने की कोशिश करेंगे और ऐसे प्रोविजंस लेके आएंगे जहां से लिटिगेशंस कम हो सके दो उसको कंसाइज करेंगे सो विल रिड्यूस इट इनटू अ स्मॉलर एक्ट rather than an act which stands today total number of section which stands into 700 and odd. When I say 700 and odd, of course you would say it's 298, but you know आपके पास 115 में A double A ऐसे आप काउंट करो तो 700 प्लस जाता है. So ये 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव्स के साथ Finance Minister had announced it. After announcement in 18 September 2024 as early, the Revenue Secretary then Sanjay Malhotra ji, who is now RBI Governor, that time he was a Revenue Secretary, he called a meeting of all the stakeholders. I was present as representing institute, and that was a preliminary discussion that Finance Minister has announced that I will do a comprehensive review of income tax to simplify how to do it, whether we should amend Income Tax Act 1961 as it is number 1, or we should bring in new act itself. And the views of all the stakeholders were taken. They were open to that suggestions. And majority of the suggestions which came in was let us review the current Income Tax Act 1961. But then the question arose that if I want to review the current Income Tax Act 1961, if I want to make it simplification, I want to remove certain provisions, explanations. जैसे आपको पता है section 1023C में 23 provisions थे जो 1 October 24 से discontinue हो गए थे after the lot of representations been made. But if I try to review the act and I want to delete obsolete sections, remove certain provisions, then the serial numbers will be disturbed. So obviously, I cannot continue with this particular act. So उस time पे it was decided, let us not go into policy changes as such as now, because generally the policy changes happens through the Finance Act. जब budget आता है तो Income Tax Act 1961 में amendments through Finance Act होते हैं. Similarly, will continue, but at least let us simplify the language, reduce obsolete sections, and the new act, that is the old act, after this reduction, let us put it in the new act. So it's like an old wine put in the new bottle. And that's what the feedback you have got also. But this was 18 September itself, and I was part of that committee also. Similarly, parallelly, a committee was formed by Niti Aayog also, wherein again, Institute was a part of that committee, the 7-member committee, where of course I was representing Institute as a chairman of Direct Tax Committee. And here also a similar suggestion came in, let us simplify the income tax law, make it more simpler English. जैसे एक एग्जांपल है कि रेसिडेंट का आपका डेफिनेशन है सेक्शन 6 you even today you do not know when I have to calculate 182, 120, 240, 60, 365, 700. Nobody knows. So it's quite complicated. So the major suggestion were, okay, let us have it more simplified. Obviously, income tax law came in, suggestions were asked. Institute gave a comprehensive review. We gave a 200-page suggestions, 113 obsolete sections to be removed, how the sections should be converted, and TDS you would see to be converted into tables. That was the suggestions given by us. And they accepted those suggestions also, and they tried to incorporate in the income tax bill also. So the income tax bill was finally tabled on 13th of February. After income tax bill was tabled, a select committee was formed, and the institute was again first to be called before the select committee of the Lok Sabha on 6th of March, wherein we gave our preliminary suggestions. If you see the current income tax law or the bill which is there, there are around 536 sections. We have given a suggestion to select committee that we can bring it down further to 450 odd. Just for an example, TDS provisions they have converted into a tables. Similarly, we can convert penalties, fees, prosecutions. पेनल्टी के आज भी 28 सेक्शंस है, कहीं पे ड्यूअल पेनल्टी के सेक्शंस है, कहीं पे जहां पे प्रोसिक्यूशंस है, पेनल्टी शुड बी रिमूव्ड आल्सो. So we gave those suggestions also, and I believe CBDT may consider that also. After our suggestions went on 6th of March, we gave clause-wise detailed suggestions in the 4 volumes on 21st of April to Select Committee and CBDT. CBDT has already responded to our suggestions also. And on 16th of this June, the last presentation was made by CBDT to the Select Committee of Lok Sabha, responding to all the suggestions made by the institute as well as some other bodies were called by the Select Committee. So the status as of today is, I believe 10th of July when the monsoon session starts, Select Committee would present their report on this income tax bill. As of today, what it seems is when we gave a twofold, threefold suggestions, there were a lot of mistakes which happened when they tried to convert, put this in the new bottle. Inadvertent errors were there. Consequences जो नहीं होने चाहिए थे वैसे भी consequences हो गए. Section 40A1 में ऐसे consequences हो गए. Section 288 जो accountant का definitions है, जहाँ पे अगर आप indebted होते थे more than 1 lakh rupees, then only you could not have accept audit. If you read income tax bill, ये reverse हो गया. So reverse हो गया. So those were all inadvertent errors. We pointed out that. We also gave policy changes. But as of today, what I know is ministry is not keen to make policy changes through this income tax bill. They would like to pass income tax bill in this monsoon session. Then they will get another 6 months for the public views to come also. And thereafter, if any policy changes need to be done, may go through a regular budget itself. So that's what the status is. And most important question, a lot of people do ask me on section 288, which is affecting our profession. And as I know, a lot of representations were made by the two professional other institution also for making an amendment in the definition of the accountant to include other professionals for conduct of the audit. And in fact, when we were called by the Lok Sabha and we had been allotted 15 minutes to present, and 1 hour 45 minutes to answer the questions raised by all the members. It was a 31 MP select committee. We responded to all the answers, and most importantly, there were also a lot of questions on definition of accountant. We have made our stand very clear that if they want to do an audit, nobody stops them. There's no reservation. Why don't they give an examination? They're trying to make a case that we are competent enough. If they are competent enough to do an audit, then as well pass the examination itself. Why they want to do a backdoor entry and not do a CA examination, not pass a CA examination and still continue to do an audit? Nobody stops them. Their competency would be automatically proved if they pass an examination. I believe it has gone well as of today. To best of my knowledge, what I know as of today, Section 288 is not proposed to be amended as of today. As of today, what we know, best will be known by 10th of July when it comes to be presented. So this is a background, and I expect that income tax bill with the should pass maybe in this monsoon session. Otherwise, we do not know, because after monsoon session, directly it would happen in winter session, which is in October, November. And then there's a budget session. So there would be a very short period of time. So ideally, if any government has to push through, this would be the ideal time to be pushed it. And with whatever circumstances and whatever status it is, I think so that should happen. Apart from this, before of course I again go to presentation, as you know, tax audit has been again form has been revised. the most important controversial section 43B subclause H, clause 22 has been amended, and they have now given, you have been asked to give complete details regarding what is the total payments to be made to MSME. And I believe also if you have not paid within due date, and if it is inadmissible, you have to give it. We are in process of revising a guidance note. The first draft of guidance note is already ready. Groups have already been finalized. I believe the council meeting is on 30th and 31st and 30th and 1st. And in this council meeting, it should get approved for exposure draft because it's a guidance note. And as I always tell, the guidance note is in nature of a mandatory publication of the institute. It has an authority. It is at very high pedestal. And in fact, for the definition of turnover, even the courts, various high courts have held that if the turnover is not defined in the Income Tax Act, you should refer to the guidance note issued by the institute because it has been issued by experts who are an accounting experts. So the guidance note are at very high pedestal. So my request to all the members is please do consider guidance note. You may agree or may not agree with the what is given in the guidance note. Still you should follow that. And I always tell, like, you may not agree with the judgment issued by a Supreme Court. You may not be happy, but those judgments are final and binding. So when it comes to an accounting publications like accounting standards guidance note, you may be happy, you may not be satisfied, but once it are issued under the authority of law by the institute under the Chartered Accountants Act, it becomes as good as final, and you should comply with it. That would be my request. I believe once the exposure draft comes, in the first week or the second week of August, when again a council meeting happens, I believe that the guidance note would be before you. Apart from that, we are also trying to make a checklist for the first time for the tax returns also. And if possible, that should also come somewhere in July or August. So the idea would be this 2 or 3 important areas. When I was just coming up, I was discussing with certain members also that whether the CBDT is responsive as far as suggestions coming from the members. And obviously my experience is different because not because I am currently a central council member, but I am associated with direct tax committee continuously for 3rd year now. In my first year of my term, I was a vice chairman. Then I became a chairman. I'm continuing as a chairman of direct tax committee. And if you see the history of the institute, nobody has been for the 3 years continuously associated as a vice chair or the chairman of direct tax committee. And my experience has been they are listening to you. Believe me, it's not that they will accept to what you say. And I always tell you, if I'm telling you, if I'm speaking to you, you may, when I speak to you, I give my views, you may accept it or not. It's not important. What is important is that you should be heard. And today, CBDT is hearing you. If they are hearing you, they may not agree today. Tomorrow they may not agree, but believe me, they will agree day after tomorrow. That's what important. So you have been heard. You have been asked for pre-budget. You have been asked for post-budget. You have been asked for comprehensive review of income tax act prior to in the very first meeting, even after the post. So my request to you is, please, if you have any suggestions, somebody and DTC is making a representations on weekly basis. There was some we were discussing on this TDS issues also where the demands have come in. As far as early as in last week of March itself, we had represented them to extend the date up to 30th of June. In fact, March was also an extended. Unfortunately, they have not done it. We are making a representation. So if you have any issues, please do write to dtc@icai.in. I can assure you each and every individual mail, ऐसा नहीं है कि आपका individual mail है तो उसको कोई value नहीं है. Each and every individual mail would be considered by the committee, discussed it, and if found appropriate, it will be taken up. So with this background, I thought I'll just briefly try to touch on what's happening on. I'm only concentrating on direct tax aspects. Obviously, the most importantly, when now the tax audit comes, you would be this time also faced with the formats of the financial statements which you will have to issue. I'm sure there is already a one lecture which has happened on the new formats. Please do keep that in mind because the form 3CA, 3CB has to be attached with the audited financial statements which are applicable to all assessees, even the non-corporate assessees, and my request to all of you is to please follow that. Now coming to topic for the day, practical consideration in TDS. As I said earlier, I tried to make it more interactive as always. If you have any questions at any point of time, any issues, please do raise your hands. I'll try to look forward to your participations. I'll just take a cordless mic. Cordless mic. Yeah. So briefly, what is the objective? Before I go to TDS, of course, my slides would contain certain which are for the subsequent references. I may not stop on that. I will just slide through it, and I will try to concentrate on important issues which, according to me, needs a discussion, needs a participation of the membership. While there could be two different opinions, I try to hold on those particular slides itself. But what is the important objectives for TDS? Anybody? Is the collection of tax. It's an administrative function, technically I would say, which has been carried out, which ideally should have been done by the department, but ideally we carried out first. When necessary. Just give me a minute, I'll just take a call of mine. Hello. Am I audible? Yes. Better? Sir, एक मिनट आवाज नहीं आ रहा अभी आ रहा हेलो हेलो
Remote भी देना है.
Yeah, sorry. Am I audible on the mic or no? मुझे नहीं आ रहा. दे नहीं आ रहा तो कोई दे दे चल हाथ में पकड़ेंगे निकालते हैं इसको. So, so the objective of as you all know, objective of TDS, as you all know, is for the collection of tax. Ideally, technically, tax should be collected by the department. It's their duty. It's not my duty. But I think so. TDS has become a mechanism for the best way for collection of tax. Most of us feel why TDS is actually been put on us, on our head. And it has actually, instead of tax collected as source TDS, it has become more TDS in today's time. Rectifies those demands to deduct tax, to file returns, and possibly to fight with the cases. So it's becoming more. But obviously, when you look at from the government angle, I think so. TDS worldwide is a mechanism which is one of the best and most economical method for collection of tax. Let us take an example. अगर मेरे जेब में पैसा आ जाता है तो कितना लोग टैक्स भरने को रेडी होगा? But if it is getting deducted, who are sitting over here, maybe practitioners, lot of clients comes to you. वो यही आपको बोलते हैं जितना टैक्स करता है उतने में काम चला लो सर. Or tax control. Nobody likes to pay out of its own pocket. If the employees, I know salary at 20 years taxes. Can I just imagine if that would have not been TDS, it would been say, even for a salaried employee, if he's been paid salary check of 100 rupees, paid 30 rupees from his own pocket would have been a very different scenario. And therefore, TDS is a very important objective of the government. It's fulfilling government's objective in collecting tax, and therefore it's going to remain. Now the question is, when it comes to a TDS, why it is complicated is multiple sections, multiple interpretations, multiple rates. As of today, if I have to analyze, there are around 6 rates of TDS also. And therefore, there is always a dispute, right? As far as classification is concerned. That could be 1%, it could be 2, 5, 10, and 20. Then 0.1 also. To certain extent, they have removed 0.1 today. That is TCS, they have removed, but I believe maybe the TDS will remove one of our suggestions for the income tax bill. And we are suggesting them also that you please consolidate TDS into 2 rates. So it becomes very easy. And all you have to remember, इंडिविजुअल का कितना है, एचएफ का कितना इतना है तो इतना कॉर्पोरेट्स का इतना अब 1 को 2 में कर दो 0.1 को एबोलिश कर दो 20 वाले को 10 में ले आओ या 5 वाले को 10 में ले जाओ कहीं ना कहीं आप इसको कंसोलिडेशन करो तब जाके ये रिड्यूस होगा. सो आई मे नॉट हैव वन सेक्शंस द वन सिंगल सेक्शंस आई कैन honestly do it, but obviously It remains important source of government's revenue. It also minimizes the tax evasions, obviously, because once the TDS has been deducted, as I said earlier, that nobody would like to evade further taxes. जब tax चला ही गया, pay गया, तो I will not claim a refund. This is just a summary. I'm just moving ahead. I just don't want to keep changes on this. I am now just coming to questions and answer sessions. Very importantly. Yes, sir. नहीं है फाइन ठीक है तो मेरे को यही खड़ा रहना पड़ेगा so I'll just come to a question answer sessions. I'll try to cover up these issues as I said earlier also. The question is, I would like your response whether TDS is applicable on component of GST on goods and services. So supposing I am raising an invoice of 100 rupees plus 18, I have to deduct TDS on what? 118 or 100? 100. Is clarity, there's no issue. Service tax में एक circular था, उसके बाद वापस एक circular आ गया है in today's time. But is there any circular in case of goods today? What will happen in the case of the goods? Because I'm going on the logic, I'm not important, I know nobody deducting TDS on GST. Amount as of today, even if it's a 0.1, but that circular was in relation to service tax. Again, GST on goods के ऊपर एक circular आया है, tarifies on TDS at 194. क्यों? Salary syndicate एक separate tax shall be deducted for the amount credited without including GST. So there is already a circular. No issues as far as this is concerned. Whether TDS is applicable on reimbursement of expenses. Yes. I'm going to bank transfer. I get an allowance, I think so, per day. For rupee, that is 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. I raise that invoice. Whether TDS should be deducted by bank on that or not. It should be deducted. Supposing I go incur expenses on air expenses or train expenses for travel to particular branch, I raise an invoice for that particular amount, whether TDS should be deducted or not. If it is rejected as reimbursement, तो within the name of directly in the number, the credit card तो होता ही नहीं है, वो तो मेरे नाम की टिकट है, मैं पे करके reimbursement claim करूँगा, वो ठीक है, रिमोट है क्या? रिमोट सर इसका है, अभी ठीक है, चल रहा है, ठीक है, तो if there is a bill is in my name, obviously, ticket is in my name, so if it's in my name, I should take an invoice in the name of the company. And I should make a payment and claim a reimbursement, no TDS. So if it's an actual reimbursement of expenses, no TDS. But if there is a profit element involved in it, like an allowance, so आपको खाने के लिए लॉजिक एंड गोली के लिए 2,000 रुपया मिलता है. You do not spend, you spend only 500 rupees. When you pay 2,000 rupees, then obviously you will deduct TDS. Whether in naming GST or not can be a decisive factor for TDS collection. A lot of people are applying GST on out-of-pocket expenses. Or not? कर रहे हो कि नहीं कर रहे हो? कर रहे हो आप? तो फिर TDS खाते को भी नहीं करना. आप GST लगा रहे हो तो उसका सर्विस एलिमेंट है. तो reimbursement I don't know. Of course, I'm not a GST expert. But by logic, I would say GST should not apply on the reimbursement if I am a pure agent concept under service. It should not apply according to me. But अगर आप GST अप्लाई कर रहे हो तो सामने वाले को आप क्या एडवाइस करोगे? TDS काट दो. काटना चाहिए. आप ऑडिटर हो, you have a freight and forwarders, clearing and forwarding. So generally they would apply GST. That would be a decisive factor that means because if GST is applied, that means there is a value addition involved, there is certain service involved, and therefore TDS should be applicable. So ultimately, in nutshell, reimbursement. No TDS. How you prove it is a reimbursement is the question. That will depend upon each circumstances. But in this reimbursement of expenses, no TDS. There's a lot of judicial view. I'm just mentioned one of them. Commission to director. TDS on commission paid to a full-time employee reflected as part of salary. Nature of commission paid to MD, who is also a full-time employee, reflected as part of salary. You disallowed the expense under section 40A1A due to non-deduction of TDS at time of provision claiming applicability of 194H. Is AO state correct or not? Commission paid to MD. TDS applicable 194 H or 192. If paid to independent director, then 194 HD. In chain में जाएगा या नीचे जाएगा? It will go in J. Am I right? Judgments, I'm not going into it, I've just mentioned it for future reference. Payment to debtors based on a fixed ratio. TDS under section 192 or 194 J. मैं fixed ratio पे करता हूँ. जितना भी आपको कलेक्शन होगा, जितने प्रेशराइज हो गया, 20% आपका या गवर्नमेंट सुनने करता है ऐसा, या तो उनका सबका सिस्टम, I don't know अदर country को, but generally all hospitals that they share the gross receipts. So when the hospital pay, it could be what 194 J. Why not 192? Wow. No employer relationship. That's the key principle. So the key principle is a judgment of Bombay High Court in case of Asian harm also, if at all it comes to an issue. Yes.
Questions coming on this medical ethics when the payments are made to doctor.
194 R.
That also.
I will come to that when we come back to this. Benefits and pesticides paid to doctor. अभी तो allowable भी नहीं है ना? TDS on tips. So you go to a restaurant and you tip an employee. या तो TDS cash इतने employee कभी जेब में डाल दे तो वो खत्म हो गया, unaccounted income है उसकी. Sometimes this could be very big income. I'll tell you. 5 साल होटल उसकी सैलरी के बराबर टिप्स हो जाती है, वो कभी टैक्सेबल ही नहीं होता रही है. तो TDS on tips in certain industries sometimes very good. और अमेरिका में इंस्टेंट हो जाए 20% तो टिप है ही है. नहीं इंडिया में अभी तक आया नहीं हुआ, तो इंडिया में भी नाउ टिप्स है कोई सबसे चला. Suppose it goes to my employer and employer pays me. तो he पे टिप है, some suppose कि जितने टिप्स कलेक्ट होंगे वो मैं डिवाइड बाय नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉइज कुछ एक सिस्टम पे वो वापस दे देते हैं. सो नोबडी, इट्स नॉट दैट जिसको मिला उसको मिला. Only then TDS applicable. If employer pays that tips back to those employees.
They cannot be on TDS.
Income and taxable income and getting a pala question.
No doubt, it's a taxable income. Find out the nature of payment, whether it falls into the STD section or not. See, process are equal.
1% taxable income.
What is that?
Taxable income is not had. I agree, sir. Yes, sir, I agree it should be taxed under some head be available. The question is that state tax, employer and employee. You could say it's a salary, I think including form 60, where they check on the salary, 500 rupees take the share. That's that answer. What are you talking?
It is not a. As an agent and not as an employer.
So it's not arising out of a contract between an employer and employee. So that should section 182 will not be applicable. Put down then next section. So Vijay has answered very correctly. So key principle is, of course, there is no contractual enforceable contract. ये तो आया तो ठीक नहीं आया तो it's as good as like a casual receipt. So of course the second issue still remains that whether it would be still taxable under salary or profit other income, other sources. Fine. ITC Limited का judgment है that it is not a salary. What it is that judgment does not say, but it's not a salary. Supreme Court, it's an apex court judgment. Mistakes in salary estimation. Can employee be treated as assessee in default? So I have to estimate your salary and then director's TDS. Of course, I take a declaration, then I do an estimation. If there is a mistake, then I can be termed as assessee in default. अगर उसने डिक्लेरेशन गलत की है, मैंने डिक्लेरेशन नहीं तब तक तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. मैंने एस्टिमेट गलत की, मैंने उसका कोई I could not calculate his emoluments, bonus, whatever it is. So the estimation is wrong. whether I get an SSC default.
So, okay, wait that I say, employee is not an SSC default. Yes, you know, that tax is the basis of estimated as provided in the act.
Agree. So he's not an assessing default. I am not an assessing officer. I am not required to be an assessing officer. I have to estimate what would be his salary, what could be his tax. Based on that estimation, if I have directed TDS, that could be wrong. I cannot be treated as an assessing default. Second point, as mentioned by you, obviously, if in any case, if he has paid taxes, but generally, क्या होता है हमारे salary cases में very difficult to prove. If I have a 50,000 employees, I do not know. I don't have a copy of returns, and they may not be filing returns also in today's time. So very difficult in such cases to arrive. Foreign allowance. TDS on foreign allowance paid to secondary employees not employed by an assessee. I take a background first. So there is an AOP. I'm taking an actual case formed by 9 public sector companies. It operated business abroad and deployed trained manpower to foreign companies. These personnel were employees of the member companies seconded to AOP. So एक association बना foreign में. I generally all company. It's a meeting. So they will do all meeting abroad. Then AOP joins. मैंने 5 employee मिले, मैंने 5 employee मिले, मैंने 5 employee. ऐसे 15 employees foreign deputation के लिए तो foreign allowances दूंगा. Question is that AOP paid allowances to this employees. No, you have to be the previous. You have to be technically in India for 5 years. That's true. It's taxable. Because people are on periods. If it's taxable, then only a question of periods. And if it's not taxable, I would say it's not question of periods. Whether AOP should direct periods and restriction by name. The question is that. Because it's a application. I'll come to next question. It's a foreign application part. एजुकेशन को बहुत रेगुलर है एक ही ऑफिस में हमारे 3 प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी है एक ही अकाउंटेंट है एक ही सीएफओ और उसके खर्चे तीनों को डिवाइड होता है पेमेंट डेट से जाता है उनकी को डेबिट होता है so estimate application when TDS of 182 is applicable for person in whose books amounts have been credited AOP paid who has to pay a 182 the question is very simple employed only irrespective wherever he is deputed. If he is deputed in some AOP party, AOP has no liability. If he is deputed on the group company, whether that group company has a liability to deduct TDS. Let's take another example, I'll take it ahead. 100 rupees paid to a CFO. But I need to salary deducted. The main employer will get it. I debit 33 rupees to 2 group companies. To CFO common and group CFO है. 33 मैंने बैठ के 33 मेरे 2 subsidiaries को मैंने दे दिया. 33 का जो reimbursement आएगा उसके लिए no. What I will do? No. I can hospital. It will be treated your reimbursement.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So of course this takes care. Made to system concerns for deputed employees also. So no disallowance. There is a judgment again of High Court. This was very important judgment. I don't know. In fact, I also may agree or not. Is TDS under 194A applicable on interest reimbursement to group companies? It's a very peculiar case. Real estate company he borrows some amount from the banks and he passes on to its subsidiaries. Subsidiaries को interest charge करता है. मेरे को interest देता है और मैं banks को देता है. Question arose before the department said was, you are paying an interest, so my subsidy is paying you Holco is paying you the banks. मैंने 100 रुपया borrow किया 10 रुपया बात किया तो Holco के पास security है it's borrowed at confused. Whether the subsidy when is paying an interest I think direct TDS on. Did we get it in the question? No. So I have 100 rupees. Alright. 50 rupees given to subsidy. 1 50 rupees to subsidy. 2 100 rupees direct 10 bank interest किया 5 रुपये recover किया 5 रुपये recover किया 10 आने की मैंने तो म्यूजिक क्या पच्चीस और 10 पे कर दिया बैंक को TDS काटना है नहीं काटना है वो एक दूसरा बजट है बैंक को एप्लीकेबल नहीं है एनटीएससी होगा तो वो भी करना पड़ेगा लेकिन ये टैक्स मेरे पे काटेगा क्या निकालेगा मैंने नहीं काटेगा तो वो खाली जगह में इंटरेस्ट नहीं कैसे चलता है, उनके आउट ऑफ अगर कोई जॉब की कंपनी है, एनपीए कंपनी हो तो मर जाएगा, पैसे ही नहीं है। Let's visually, I keep on one step ahead. Now I'm going to logic because you may have understood when I said to judgment, even I did not agree with there is no judgment to that extent of a president. Even I do not agree to that extent, but going to a logic. Let's take an example. I have a loss making company. मैं 10 रुपया इसको दे रहा हूँ, उसमें से 1 रुपया चला गया, 9 इससे नहीं पे करता।
Compliance एक
क्या कर रहा है?
compliance एक box logic.
Correct. That's why you see. So flexibility is very important. Question is whether this interest is taxable in my hand. You say it's taxable, and then you are getting expenditure. It's taxable, it's an income from other source. You can try out 50-70 expense to the gross base pay, yes, why not? Right? I'm not going to do that. Then I can do that. Really. Now, the certain judgment will be on mind. Yes, yes, yes.
So there is a reimbursement of the age.
Reimbursement costs. That's it's reimbursement.
Then why the principle of reimbursement should not apply here also?
It has applied. 89 Developers Mumbai Tribunal 2024 का judgment है boss. He has applied. That's why I'm saying. Interest paid by assessor was merely reimbursement of interest to the principal borrower who has paid interest to the lenders. So the reimbursement has been extended to extended. It's very important. And I say reimbursement is not taxable. Now, extending it to words so that it's a reimbursement of expenses, I think so you are in. हाँ?
इसका लिया रहेगा तो भी दो मैच हो जाएगा.
ये तो वैसे भी मैच हो ही रहा है, एडमिशन होगा. नहीं मैच होगा तो तेरा तो पैसा ब्लॉक हो ही जाएगा ये चला. लेकिन 10 रुपया लेके 10 तो देना ही है ना. हाँ तो मेरे को तो बैंक में जमा करना है. लेकिन तो करना है ना. तो 10 में से एक तो TDS चला जाए और मेरे को पूरा 10 पे करना है. whether I pay 92 FPSC पर 1 to TDS. तो 10 तो मेरा आउटफ्लो है. इनको भी 90 1 to be blocked like pay people. To be like in a different position. So reimbursement of expenses basically won't get instead of reimbursement of expenses. Because that at one point of time TDS has been directed, they income and flowing ultimately to the bank, to the ultimate owner of that income. So TDS should be at one point, not at all accounts. The logic of the deal, right? I appreciate that logic. But actually changes our mind in future also. See, I actually why I created taking this example, all these examples is just no examples are not important. Important is how people are thinking. That's more important. And I just ये ऐसा argument करने वाले भी है लोग. Bottom box. Delete payments के ऊपर interest का TDS लगेगा कि नहीं लगा?
Delayed settlement.
Delete MSP को भी ब्याज दे रहे हैं ना आपको. वो delete payment नहीं हुआ ना. For delay settlement of invoice. I'll go to background. Background. Purchase of shares to a broker. There were delays in making payments to the broker for which assessor paid certain amount labeled as interest. Assessor did not deduct TDS. He was treated 190/40A1A disallowance because applicability of 194A. Whether 194A will be applied. ये legal standpoint है. What should be? Whether this is correct.
There is no landing of money. No transaction. So interest
No lending.
lending of money. Yes. Very delayed. Not borrowed money.
Technically, 194A tax of interest of borrowed money. Okay. It does not come from TDS credit. It does not tax. And I think so 194A is not applicable. That's what decision also of one of the tribunal states that. And I think so this is, of course, this is only a figure basically. But on delay payments, there is not delay payments when you make payment for goods also. जैसे कि आप MSP को बोलिएगा, क्वेश्चन ये आएगा, 45 की ड्यूरेशन के बाद जब आप इंटरेस्ट को दोगे TDS काटोगे कि नहीं काटोगे? हाँ? एक्चुअली चलो तो होना है 40 में भरेगा 100% is right there. So you will not proceed whether you will get or not after this. That is also use of delayed payment. Delayed payment of whether to pay for buying shares or purchase of goods. It's the same thing. There's no difference. So this segment may improve in non-deductive TDS. This I'll just interest payment to NBFC. TDS is applicable. Statement to EMI में आप करते हो क्या हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है? टैक्स मीटर क्या है? हाँ? So people are complaining, you know. Under education, people are not complaining. So I just thought I will remind you. Very good. Repair contracts 194. TDS deductible of entire contract value, including material cost in repair contract. Say I have a works contract. Whatever I make this billing including material plus labor charges. 94 C applicable. First, right? 1% or 2% depending upon status of the whether I have to certain material value and deduct TDS 194 C on your labor portion or on the composite one.
Whether it's on a contract side.
I will say I can identify separately. What is trying to say? You can identify separately a material value. Okay, उसको मत पालो.
It is on the contract sum. It is not on the labor sum service. Contract sum includes the value of material also.
I know it. So you will take on whole value. And then you say quality contract with material level, you will build on net terms. Well, minority को disregard मत करो. That's what Congress is saying.
When we had to see if we can identify like say.
Yeah, it is actually very good. So I have 194. If we say it's not applicable, obviously 194 you will come in. I know that. The material is like 194. I can say 90 to that. Minority is correct. Minority is correct this time. He says there is similarly circular also on this. 7.5 clarify that if contract is composite, but the value of material is separately identified. Identifiable. I not say mention. I think identifiable. आप GST invoice में उसको शायद works contract लिखे होंगे. Separately आप identify नहीं करते होंगे. So I do not know. I can't say that. But circular sense it should be identifiable. Identifiable can be contract, not necessarily through invoice. तो आपको सिर्फ लेबर पोर्शन पे TDS करना है. But this also again triggers mind. We were under impression 1% इसलिए रखा है ठीक है. Compensate हो जाएगा सब कुछ, but नहीं. It's only on labor value. There's a judgment of Hyderabad High Court for this. Aircraft landing charges, of course, nowadays, when we talk of aircraft, a lot of things comes to my mind. Let's take an example. You know, whenever I land aircraft in an airport authority or I leave a park, they charge me. Nothing is changes.
Right.
उसके ऊपर जो मैं वो लैंड करूंगा या मैं पार्क करूंगा तो उस पे कौन सा टीडीएस करूंगा. When I before I करेगा तो इस संदर्भ में. क्योंकि लेडी है ना इसलिए पार्टी चार्ज लगे. नहीं एक लेडी चार्ज लगे पार्टी चार्ज लगे ओवरफ्लाइट चार्ज लगे नेविगेशन चार्ज लगे चार्ज होते हैं जो रिगार्डिंग है. Let's presume that it's more in nature of parking because it's a use of space. You are using airport authority space while parking. Then you are actually doing the parking. When you navigate also, the overflight charges होते हैं जो completely charge करती है. कोई भी foreign airline के पास होती है इंडिया के ऊपर से तो हम overflight charge करते हैं. इसलिए आपको नहीं then it means not necessarily like this. Even air into space. Questions whether it is for I or C. I में क्या पता ये पूछते सी है कि नहीं रिफर अच्छा आई क्या है सी वाला सी है so whether the use of space is involved whether I should become permanently or I no Japan Airlines Supreme Court it says These charges were related to facilities such as air traffic services, ground safety, aeronautical communication, and other navigation services, which I is required to provide. 194 I did not apply. Obviously, if it does not apply, next question would be what it applies. Obviously, Supreme Court did not answer because that was not an issue before that. But obviously, it could be a 194C being a service contract. Then management services. 194C और J. मैं आगे नहीं जाऊंगा पहले. So मैं bill manage करता हूँ. आपको पता है काफी multinationals के bill payment को third party वाले. I don't know how many of them. They do not make the payments. They have given an outsourced contract to some third party. They invoice भी आपसे लेंगे, vendor से भी वही बात करेंगे, transfer भी update करेंगे, check भी करेंगे. 194C और J. It's a contract. See, it's a contract. और एक टेक्निकल सर्विस ना बिल पास करना, चेक करना, टीडीएस काटना, जीएसटी लगा है कि नहीं लगा, ना चाहिए. टीडीएस तो इतना डिफिकल्ट है. Application of TDS, applicable hacking in this applicable, all this is built and technically by bill management. So whether it will be C or J, C, no J, why? So what does the point is? Very important point. Karnataka High Court says, since the services bold portion in the land did not involve the exercise of professional expertise. The key word is professional expertise, which can get in mind to what type this person comes. क्यों निकल के जो web design है उसका 194 करना चाहिए और 194C करना चाहिए. For people who may not be covered as a professional under 44AA or 44ADA also sometimes. But we feel that they have good margin, so we should offer them under 44ADA. क्योंकि design पूरी profit ही है. Ultimately design service तो पूरी profit ही होती है. लेकिन ये 44ADA में चार्ज लगे ADA में जैसे नहीं है पर मेरे ख्याल से क्वेश्चन आते हैं. लोगों के what should I do? But they are not professional expertise जहाँ पे यूज नहीं होता है. वहाँ पे TDS 194 देने लगेगा. Obviously, application of 194 is not determinate for the purpose of other provisions for ADA. Yes, you were saying that.
So the accounting service is provided by a non-professional accountant. It is still following to 194J and not 194C. See, am I right in saying that?
Because yes, professional expertise is being used. Accounting knowledge is that accounting is a professional expertise. It's not chartered accountant, it's an accounting service. But bill management नहीं है, क्योंकि bill management is not really accounting. It's I will not say clerical. TDS में तो बेचारा अप्लाई करता है, पेमेंट लगाता है, कितना TDS काटा. Trade charges reimbursement to a seller who arranges transportation. We all know reimbursement is not taxable. A seller, मैंने goods sold किए, मैं transportation arrange करता हूँ और मेरा buyer मुझे reimburse करता है, तो लगेगा कि नहीं लगेगा? 194C. It's a reimbursement technically because I am paid to a transporter. So when I pay to a transporter as a seller of the goods, I have arranged it. I may deduct whatever applicable TDS, but if I'm claiming it from the buyer, I may not deduct. 194 क्यों लगेगा? Billing to be part of the value of the goods. Exactly नहीं है.
The contract is.
बिल में इनवॉइस है तो डिडक्ट कर दो, otherwise reimbursement. ठीक है, fair enough. But I think so it's a reimbursement. So again 194C is not applicable in such cases. Commission to consigning and forwarding agent. Whether 194C or 194H. Assessing company engaged in manufacturing of automobile tires. आपको CFS तो पता है, clearing and forwarding भी होते हैं या consigning and forwarding agents जो बोलते हैं, उनको जो कमीशन दिया जाता है 2%, वो 194C लगेगा क्या 194H? That's a question. सेलिया बोलते हैं वैलिडेशन के FMCG प्रोडक्ट्स में भी बहुत होते हैं, ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री में होता है. So जितने भी गुड्स आते हैं उसके बेस पे कमीशन ही होता है. तो sometimes they also pay 2% or the total value of the goods acquired, invoice, something like that. Whether it's a C or H. See, generally clearing and forwarding does not help you selling the goods. यूजर लिखता है, वो क्या करता है, ट्रांसपोर्टर अरेंज करना, सर्विस करना, लोडिंग करवाना, अनलोडिंग करवाना और एक्सपोर्टिंग इंस्ट्रक्शंस नहीं कर पाता. So it's a experience clearing and forwarding, I would say. So technically, obviously, that was an argument which was being made. So I think so. The judgment of CA 26 says TDS should have been deducted under section 194C, not H. Payment of license fee. IRCTC is providing catering services in Indian Railways. For operating this arrangement, IRCTC ने किसी और थर्ड पार्टी को देते हैं. IRCTC do not execute themselves, but they are the original licensee of railways. What does IRCTC does this? He charges a license fee from those contractors who actually provide. Whether I have to deduct 194C fees. Only 194. There is no other section applicable. Whether 194C would be applicable on such license. So let's take an example. He says goods license fee can be fixed, can be $8. He may say that you operate जितना बेचना बेचो मुझे एक बार पे 10,000 रुपया दे दो IRCTC पैसे as a royalty as a license fee. Or if you are going to sell 1 lakh rupees, you give me 10%. If you are going to sell 50,000, give me 5%. So it could be $8. You don't know license fee that generally I tell you. Whether 194C is applicable on such license fee. Whether it's a contract, whether any work is carried out by IRCTC, the question will arise that when you put 194C, that should be carrying out some work. What IRCTC is doing? कुछ नहीं करता IRCTC. फैसिलिटी भी क्या करता है? ऐसी चार्ज कर रहा है, WAI चार्ज करता है एयरपोर्ट अथॉरिटी सब दुकानों से. जितने भी शॉप के लिक्विडिटी सबसे 10% देता है, रेस्टोरेंट से देता है. It's a license fee. But what actually work there? IRCTC or airport authority of India in such cases are doing. Are they carrying out any work for which they are being paid? If there is no work, there is no 194. Is there any service? Service maybe है. Service contract you very well. We could see. Is there any service? No. Nothing. At the most you can say it's a loyalty. तो loyalty के लिए कौन सा section? इंडिया में रॉयल्टी फ्री है ना, फॉरेन में लगता है टैक्स ऐसा. इनका तो रहता है रॉयल्टी बीजो 10% और मिलती है बीजो वैल्यू बिंदु बट व्हाट नो इंडिया सीजे टेक्निकल सर्विस तो है. सो टेक्निकली रॉयल्टी इज नॉट सब्जेक्ट टू TDS and any section. The only way it could be closest is 194J. According to me also it's TDS free. So this says 194C is not applicable. Supreme Court in case of Mitchell D. Shah. Okay. Payment for advertisement space amount to a contract for work liable for TDS under section 194C. Assessee company entered into agreement to purchase advertisement space in local newspaper. Assessee exercised complete control over the ad space with the right to either retain or resell it. It later sold the advertisement space to its holding company on a principal-to-principal basis. Commissioner issued a notice under 263 questioning non-deduction of TDS under section 194C and proposed a disallowance under section 40A1A. Now the question is whether 194C applies to such transactions where I have resold it to Holdco. So I got an advertisement space with the newspaper. I resold it to another entity. When I resell, obviously I'll get some money for that. Whether 194. Generally, advertisement contracts are covered under 194C. But now this is purely whether it can be termed as an advertisement contract, then only it's 194C. Can I say it's purely selling of space, which is not an advertisement? That's what a legal contention is. That's what the legal contention is. There's no work which is being carried out. What I'm doing is I'm giving him a space, and giving a space does not get covered under section 194C, which has been approved by Karnataka High Court again. So it's not a work, it's as good as contract for sale of the space, which is not covered under section 194C. Fees retained by e-commerce platforms. E-commerce, so we are hundred nowadays, Amazon, Flipkart. I think so everybody will have clients over here through Kansi management, through some of the clients actually sell the goods through such platforms. Then retail seventies. What should be the applicable? First of all, TDS application. वो तो नेट पर से ही देता है. The way I know, I don't know if I may be wrong. कोई ऐसा है क्या ये TDS करता है? तो वो 100 rupees का कुछ सही है. By one dealer in electronics, he sells for 100 rupees. He will have his own commission, whatever it is, 5%, 7% or 13% in some products. He retails it and pays it and then it. जो इतने retail किए, question is whether question arose before the course is whether it's a commission and whether it could actually be applicable or not. Commission है वो गुस्सा बेचता नहीं है. See, whenever I talk about 184X, whether it's actually selling my goods, promoting my goods, Amazon कुछ करता है क्या? हाँ? पर किसने करता है? सेल क्या करता है? He does not promote customer. कोई स्पेशल इससे एडवर्टाइजमेंट तो है नहीं. तो भी कब से नहीं अगर एडवर्टाइज भी करेगा कि भाई I will get a preferred listing, a preferred listing. That's a normal listing. There's no charge for that technically. The charge 11 rupees. So this is a service fee for getting out that particular transaction. Now the question is whether 194X. No. Amount retained by the e-commerce platform was a fee for rendering e-commerce services and not in nature of commission or brokerage. अभी e-commerce services किस में टैक्स होगा? 194C लग सकता है, but not H. Similarly, fees for payment gateways. आप पेमेंट गेटवे को फी पे करते हो ना, काफी लोग चार्ज करते हैं आजकल 100 rupees, 200 rupees. Whether it's 194H? No. Then what it is? ये is of course आंसर नहीं है. It's full form. It's not 194H. That's a simple question. Distributor margins. Pharmaceutical companies, if you see generally FMCG products, how do they purchase? They have an MRP of minimum. So they will sell 100 minus 10 to a distributor. Distributor retailer को बेचेगा 100 minus 8. So 10 और 8 का 2 का जो डिफरेंस है वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर की मार्जिन होगी और 8 रुपए मार्जिन होगी रिटेलर की. For example, let's confine ourselves to distributor margin of 2 rupees. Whether TDS is applicable on that? The first question.
No. Actually.
It's not my commission.
It's not my commission. Because the buy the sale is configured, then the distributor buys the takes the delivery of the goods from the manufacturer.
So it's purchase. लेकिन फॉर्मलाइजेशन में तो डिटेल भी होता है अगर नहीं दिखता है.
That is why.
एक्सपायरी गुड्स होने के बाद नहीं दिखता है, वापस जाता है.
That's the terms conditions of the agreement.
It's retailable, no credit. Then, so whether it is distributor margin for lot of other industries. Let's take an example. When I come to an next example, it will also come to a telephone. When how to pay a recharge देता हूँ तो 10 रुपया उसको देता हूँ, 10 रुपये को बेचता हूँ और मेरे को उसमें मार्जिन मिलती है.
Then the services are provided by the telephone operator.
हाँ.
So that the question is different.
So okay, let's go there. So on this distributor margins, no TDS, that means 194X, no. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct. So TDS नहीं लगेगा.
ठीक है.
क्यों?
It's
It's purchase and sell principal to wholesale 194 क्यों लगेगा? उसमें तो नहीं है. If I am going to 100 minus 10 or 90, 194 क्यों हो गया? It's ultimately principal to principal transaction. Right. Income of franchise distributors for sale of prepaid coupons starter kits. ये वही हो गया prepaid coupons. मैंने 1000 रुपये के prepaid coupon आजकल मोबाइल पे होता है. 1000 के वो मेरे को 900 में देता है. Then again this is my margin and I sell those 1000 for 1000. I will be getting the back 5,000 also based on some of them numbers. So 100 rupees is my value. So then 100 rupees of the discount मिला तो मेरी margins है. Whether I need TDS is applicable or again it's a trading. The principal charges so that bought something for 900 I sold for 100.
Actually, can we consider this as a digital asset? And we are buying the like a digital good. We are buying it and selling it. Digital rights we are buying. We are selling it. So it's a gross profit that I mean.
So it's a trading. It's a trading of a service. It's a trading of a service, but cost. A trading of service. So no TDS. Not trading of goods also.
Not even good. If it's not a good, then not even.
SIM card अगर होगा तो starter kits. Second question, prepaid coupons है. Coupons तो ठीक है, it's a right, but there could be a SIM card, there could be a starter kits जहाँ पे goods बन के आते हैं. आपके पास SIM card तो goods है, सब material. Yes.
It's a good.
Then at least sale of goods will apply, purchase and sale.
Yes.
Anyway, this question is on 194X. 194X is not applicable, no doubt about it. The question will arise whether this margin should be taxed at all under TDS. Because in my views, say, I would go on the say it was like a distributor's margin. I'm a distributor, whether it's a goods or services. It's like margin for trading into like the goods or services, whatever you say. There are judgments to that extent which to my reflection of course it's not there. Even the SIM card sale has been had to be a service. It's not a good actually. It's only a good to a limited enables you to provide service. But it ultimately limits the service. SIM card is never goods to that extent.
How the SIM cards are SIM cards.
तो ये सी ये transit rate I think so. Transit rate पे TDS 194 आई. आपने रीडेवलप में गए आपको भरा गया 5 लाख रुपया महीना 12 months अभी अभी तक प्रमोशन 30 months किया हमने ये और एक्वालिटी डेवलपर्स को दिया ये नहीं करना चाहिए because now the children are clear that it is not taxable. It can be a hardship compensation or a capital receipt. In fact, yesterday I was reading that it's a capital receipt. Forget hardship compensation. Hardship compensation is also capital receipt, not taxable. So now if it is not taxable, the question of 194 I do not and it's okay. नहीं लगेगा. Actually पहले काटते थे तो इनकी प्रॉब्लम होती थी वो आपके 26 ईयर्स में भी आता था और आप उसको इनकम ऑफर नहीं करते तो लोग इंस्पायर नहीं होता तो यू कैन बी यस फॉर no it will be no it's not worth it it's not a developer and you have then to it's not a JDA it's not a JDA it's a development agreement JDA is between the two developers movie one developer and then one or something developers whatever it is but when it comes to this you are paid to get a compensation for you may promise property for a temporary period give it to some alternate accommodation pay compensation for that then a hardship compensation that's all it's a capital it's not actual loss
Not required to show anywhere in the return.
according to me no ज्यादातर लोगों होता है अपने यूनिटी में भी यूज करते हैं मेरे को 5 लाख रेंट मिला तो मैंने 3 लाख पे किया तो 2 लाख पे पे किया लो है ना also you but now we need to change the rule because there are capital judgments which says capital receipt obviously somebody would have taken that you also can take it up अपनी view is so based on those two judgments and those two judgments seems to be good I hope both still sustain yes you were saying something yeah who's feeling exactly नहीं है capital is income ही नहीं है it's not an income if it's an income and income then it's not an income it's capital no obviously so there is no policy under the income tax law to show capital easy हम क्या जाते हैं सिर्फ capital easy को करने का law 16 नहीं I don't think so amounts in nature of so and so not debited not credited to pay credit अगर वो नेचर का है इसमें कैपिटल इसी जाता है शायद उसका आपको देना पड़ेगा लॉ 16 ऑफ टैक्स सॉरी amounts of the foreign nature not credited to profit and loss पर सेकंड कैपिटल इसी हमारी तुम्हारी मेमोरी ये इसमें बताओ लेकिन इसमें बताया इसका मतलब टैक्सेबल नहीं है नॉट नेसेसरी यस ओके यस Compensation taxable ही नहीं है NRI और नॉन NRI होना तो ये सब ज्यादा लगा देते maybe एक्सेल टैक्स लगा देते अदर स्टेट को लगा के होंगे 94 आई में इसके तो टैक्सेबल नहीं ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं yes
Sir, asking
one thing yeah
in case of similar to that what sir asked now, there was a client who was an NRI she was staying out of India, her building went into redevelopment and the builder has deducted TDS on it under 195. Now, if I have to, I have option one is I file her return, claim refund of that.
That's
As you said, there is no income. So in the ITR, if I am not, there is no other income. She's a senior citizen NRI. Now, if I show no income, I claim the entire amount as refund. How can I show the ITR as an exempt income? Or because you have to show.
See, this is not an income, neither an exempt income. It's a capital receipt, number one. So you will not show an exempt, never taxable. Obviously, the next taxable you tax income नहीं बताएगा आप TDS कैसे केवल कर रहे हो तो आपको रेक्टिफिकेशन करना पड़ेगा पर बना सकते हैं आपको शायद आपको 154 का रिस्पांस देना पड़ेगा कि दूसरा कैपिटल रिसीट इन व्यू ऑफ आई in response to 154 they should allow you. That's what I will do. I believe they were all immediately on the outplay. Well, yeah.
Yes, has been made. Okay. So can we go in the DIS and say that it's an exam, income not taxable there first?
Yes, correct.
But is it coming, it's still coming under the notice part?
Yes, it will come in the notice part. Definitely. There would be a mismatch. There would be a mismatch. You will have to be able to take. Fine. Tax will pay, there will be a mismatch. That does not mean because TDS is actually applicable probably. In that group. Now it's clear that TDS is also not applicable. But some developers may still continue. वो developers ने ऐसे GST की collect किया था इस तरह से.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
There is no hardship at all in case of not. And you can see the success.
Hardship is not that only to Bangladesh.
Why proper mechanism?
Sir, hardship is not to human. Belong to it.
I
It belong to economic. Sir, no, ultimately what the code says, then hardship motivation, because ultimately you have to move, whether you move, you move your belongings from express to Bangladesh, then it's always an hardship which you undergo. Payment on transfer of certain immovable properties. ये तो आपको पता है कि immovable property transfer करो तो आपको TDS डिडक्ट करना है. Let us take a scenario. Say it is 60 lakh scheme. I have two buyers and two sellers. Whether TDS is applicable.
Yes.
After amendment. पहले नहीं करते थे. बराबर है. Scenario two buyers, one seller.
It's for property.
Co-op property. अगर property की 60 lakhs हो गई तो अब खत्म. अब बात ही खत्म. चलो. Amendment हो गया. Common area maintenance charges. I take a property on lease. I pay a rate of rupees. And I pay 50 rupees to society board. And if program make a TDS silver 94, I. Am I right? 15 rupees से TDS start कर दी. There are three scenarios. 15 rupees में मेरे landlord को pay करूँ, वो pay कर देता society को. 15 rupees मैं directly pay करूँ. तो क्या? ये साधना के लिए साधना है. हाँ? नहीं तो नहीं होगा. डायरेक्ट पे करूँ तो नहीं आता. लेकिन अगर मैंने लैंडलॉर्ड को ही दिया तो क्या पार्ट ऑफ रेंट है. ये तो मीडिया स्टार्टिंग होगा. पार्ट ऑफ रेंट है तो सबने पार्ट ऑफ रेंट नहीं अगर 120 है एंड ही टेक्स केयर ऑफ दैट तो हम भी कर देगा. लेकिन मेरा एग्रीमेंट हो जाएगा 100% तो नहीं कर दूंगा. कॉमन एरिया मेंटेनेंस नहीं करेगा. ठीक है. और इसमें ऐसे भी क्या कॉमन एरिया जहाँ पे सोसाइटी से वहाँ पे जो टैक्सेबिलिटी की भी इश्यूज हो. मेंबर्स की रिकवर कर रहा हो कि लैंडलॉर्ड से बहुत इश्यू होता है. इसके लिए इंक्लूसिव कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स बनाते हैं आपसी दायित्व. तो बिकॉज़ इफ आई रिकवर फ्रॉम अ टेनेंट then society will not get the benefit also of mutual interest. There could be a signal of mutuality of this society. So generally that's why I take a 120 I am becoming from my member. So GST में भी एक आर्गुमेंट है और इनकम टैक्स में भी एक आर्गुमेंट है. Payment of interconnect usage charges. Whether 194 GS. Inter usage charges मालूम है. Telecom industry में वापस है. Telecom industry में मैं बोलता हूँ आप Yes, तो मैं जब भी आपको कॉल करता हूँ वो एक नेगेटिव सेंड होती है, एक इक्वल यूसेज चार्ज करती है वोडाफोन से। यस, तो वो लोग आप इसमें पैसा शेयर कर, उस पे बोला इनको ये लगेगा। नहीं, नहीं लगेगा, राइट, नहीं लगेगा। There's no professional expertise, technical services तो आ जाता है, लेकिन technically it's not a technical, again the issue is whether it's a use of space. Technically it's like no human element involved. E-commerce operator liability. When an agent using an e-commerce platform to book tickets is liable to deduct TDS under section 194O, which deals with e-commerce operators making payment to e-commerce participants. 194 applies to e-commerce operators who directly facilitate sales or services on an online platform. Agent using the platform of e-commerce for booking tickets merely had an access to system. So 194 not applicable technically. TDS on payment of electricity charges. TDS लगता है क्या इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पे? क्यों? हाँ? अगर गुड्स नहीं है क्या? तो फिर लगेगा क्यों नहीं? क्यों? सेल ऑफ गुड्स में कुछ है, जीएसटी में? आई डोंट नो, जीएसटी में कुछ है कि नहीं है? नहीं, एग्जेम्प्ट होना लग चाहिए। गुड्स ट्रीट होता है कि नहीं है? एग्जेम्प्ट है, ठीक है, टैक्स नहीं लगता है, दैट्स ओके, बट इट्स अ गुड्स, नो? सो टेक्निकली लगना चाहिए कि नहीं लगना चाहिए? So there's a judgment of in case of NTPC of the Supreme Court which says it's a goods. Now once it's a goods, I would say 194Q applicable. Technically लगना चाहिए. There's a CBDT circular to that extent which is only removes from 194Q transaction in securities, transaction in electricity, renewable energy certificate and energy saving certificate traded through power exchanges registered in accordance with regulation 21. So if it is a traded between two power exchanges registered, then only. But in case manufacturer is paying to an electricity company directly from the companies engaged in power generation, then it would be applicable. करते नहीं है कोई. TDS on sale of unlisted securities, whether it's a goods again, it's a goods, तो लगेगा कितने लोग काटते हैं?
Listed securities are exempted, so unlisted will be there.
Unlisted की बात है, लगना चाहिए. चलो, let's go to now. TDS on benefits perquisites provided to a resident in respect of business or profession. Sorry. This is a provider of benefit or perquisite required to verify its taxability under 28(4) before deducting 194R. If you go to the provisions of 194R, it says complete you are providing any benefit of perquisite and it is taxable under section 28(4), then TDS has to be applied. I mean, आप benefit दे रहा हूँ, मुझे क्या पता उसके आप पे taxable है कि नहीं? So what's my liability? ऐसा person providing benefit who has to deduct the TDS, how do we determine whether it is acceptable in his mind as a business? Patient when I talk of purely info. So when am I required to determine whether it's acceptable in the hands of recipient or not? The question is that. Or I have to deduct TDS irrespective. Of course, law says you have to deduct only when it is taxable. Question is that there was a circular issued to that effect, which says that you cannot go into that. If you are giving a benefit of perquisite, you please deduct it. Whether reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenses incurred by service provider in the course, ये हमने पहले ही डिस्कस कर लिया आने के पहले. ये जो हमारा ऑडिटर का क्लाइंट है, this is just a chart. So I've just tried to envisage a situation of reimbursement of expenses. क्यों reimbursement दो चीज है. अगर reimbursement करके टैक्स होगा तो क्वेश्चन अराइज होगा 194 जीरो टैक्स होगा कि आर में होगा. वो प्रोफेशनल फीस बन जाती है कि बेनिफिट देती है आपकी. आपको दो हजार कर दिया. Does it become प्रोफेशनल फीस और इट्स बेनिफिट ऑफ प्रोफेशनल? टैक्स रेट सेम ही है ना, क्या अलग है? सेम ही. सो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं.
इस सेक्शन में तो प्रॉब्लम है ना, whether it could be a benefit which you are getting, you get 2,000 rupees along with the benefit or is the provisional fees. Presuming it's taxable. Of course, I tried to emphasize which we were discussing earlier also that if it is an invoice with the name of auditor who paid initially, then the TDS would be 194R would be applicable. But if it is the name of the company, I paid and then I get that reimbursement, TDS not applicable. So the key criteria according to me for determining benefit of purchase cycle is whether the invoice is in whose name. अगर मेरे नाम पे है तो आप फंस गए, पेमेंट कोई भी करो और बाद में रिइंबर्समेंट क्लेम करो तो वो बेनिफिट फ्री हो सकता है. सो हम जब रिइंबर्समेंट देख रहे थे तो अगर रिइंबर्समेंट से बाहर जाते हैं तो बताइए फोर डे लगेगा कि हाँ लगेगा. दैट क्वेश्चन है वो. One view is 194A to be continued. Another view is it's a benefit. Quantified value 194R should be applicable. As long as tax rates are same, I'm not worried much. Coming to last version of 194T. Everybody knows 194T has been introduced and there are a lot of issues as far as this is concerned. Then let us take an example if I give the regulation on monthly basis. Whether I can get 20 years if my partnership provide that I will be paid as a working partner 50,000 rupees per month. तो मुझे TDS काटना है. Yes. हर महीना काटना है. अगर नीचे के सालों में जाके डिस्काउंट होगा बिल्कुल प्रॉफिट नहीं आया unfortunately if there is no profits then obviously all this regulation will get disallowed under section 20. We need to go to working up to 3 lakhs up to 6 lakhs now. Whatever. What will happen to that? Because as a recipient will give you 6 lakhs salary, you will direct 16,000 peoples. But taxable salary out of 6 lakhs derogation will be only tax because that's why this is not happening in the problem. What should I do? Will that be a mismatch or I will have to pay refund? So all these issues will arise. Second issue which arises what happens when the as in most of cases of course might be very different with that. Generally मैंने देखा है कि partnership deed में काफी जन यही कैसे करते हैं salary to be paid as per the section 40B of the tax act. उस केस में क्या होगा? तो सैलरी कब डिटरमाइन होगी? when will सैलरी भी figure? Say it is figured on 21st March or 30th September. नहीं नहीं लोग आपको कैश को में दो. सप्टेम्बर को ट्रिगर हुआ, सप्टेम्बर में ट्रिगर हो, तो ये साल की चेक कर लो. This again another activity for that because this is impacting salary accountant firms itself. Let us take an example. I will say that let's assume I will come to know that I actually work out the income tax profits, good profits. If I come to know like okay, how do you pay? If you are saying that because not that आप salary कैसे देना करोगे तो आपको कई मार्च के बाद पता चलोगे कैश बेसिस पे आप ये कैसे करोगे? You are following cash basis you are. Lawyers, professionals, chartered accountants, architects, all professions are following cash basis. In case of cash basis, to my understanding, up to 31st of March, you have to settle any revenue estate by your theory of cash. Any more argument go, setting that was given not a recovery नहीं है, तो नहीं उनको allow नहीं करूँगा मैं, वो नहीं वो की तो बात की बात है, चाहिए तीन साल हो जाएगी, फिर क्या करोगे आप? हाँ? नहीं आप पढ़ती बात में कैसे करोगे? और फिर बोलोगे कि मैं ऑलरेडी ड्रॉप कर चुका हूँ, मैं कहता कि वो सैलरी का एक और अगेंस्ट फाइन कैपिटल सैलरी. और फिर का आर्गुमेंट होगा कि मैं कैश बेसिस पे तब आप बोलोगे नहीं सर ये तो सैलरी के सामने है. तो we can use the बहुत ठीक है. So long difficulties it doesn't look as a very simple. In certain areas it can be a difficulty. To my idea, I never agreed. That's it for probably my question. I never agreed to a situation that my income, my salary can be dependent upon profits. Allowance can be dependent. Fixed ownership में either working partner loss. What's the definition of working partner? Irrespective of profit or loss, I will be paid from salary. That's what working partner is all about. आपने जो working partner को भी condition डाल दिया, definitely partner है.
कि लॉस प्रॉफिट होगा इंटरनेशनल अलाउ होगा तो मिलेगी तो क्या वर्किंग पार्टनर लॉस so I always was of the view that any similar problem is also not correct sometimes may not be correct of course it's accepted over a period of time I'm not saying but technically a working partner should have a fixed payment you can have a fixed salary of a minimum 25,000 30,000 50,000 which you know that 100% allow होगा based on the market maybe you can create to that extent फिर 21 मार्च से अप्रैल या मई में जो डिफरेंशियल होगा वो देखेंगे तो आपका एक्सटीरियर नॉट होगा शॉर्ट पीरियड में हो सकता है एटलीस्ट डिस्काउंट्स देखेगा एंड यू ऑल नो शॉर्ट इज डायरेक्शन नो डिस्काउंट्स कैलकुलेशन को छोड़ देते हैं और टू बेसिस को अपने क्लाइंट से उसमें तो शॉर्ट पीरियड का मेरे पास ऑलवेज आर्गुमेंट हो सकता है नो डिस्काउंट मेरा पर ईयर बने actually if you take TDS on a monthly basis on a fixed working partner salary, second doesn't state and go on. I can pick 20,000 for one period का particular TDS. So short period से गिना जाएगा तो against exam में होगा number one. और ये वाली की applicant में होगी. It can estimation may also have an argument that I am not a necessity. Anyhow, the estimation is correct. I cannot estimated is next portion of salary which is depending upon profit. And we say performance based salary. उसके ऊपर नहीं होना चाहिए. So my view would be आप estimate करो, certain portion आप pay करो, there should be certain portion that you should definitely pay based on your past experience. Please get TDS on that. Do not say that whatever is withdrawing is a refined capital account. तो भी लाइक वर्किंग पार्टनर आई इफ आई don't think that argument that is not a working partner technically. Of course, they're not put to that argument because there was no TDS that is going to happen. But you are paying tax here, you are paying tax there. In every partnership, there are cases hardly scrutiny में भी आते हैं कई बार. There is such questions that occur. But when 184T comes into the picture, we do not know what's going to happen in the future. So my suggestion at this stage would be, you put some salary has to be there. TDS should be deducted on month basis for that TDS salary which has been paid to either through a withdrawal or through credit to the current account. Balance salary can be paid on 40. So very excess salary would be paid based on the 40. दूसरा अगर मैं TDS डिलीवरी डिडक्ट किया एस्टिमेटेड टैक्स पेमेंट होगा तो शायद इस तरह होगा अब टू इयर्स में अलाउ हो जाएगा और पीरियड से हुआ मैंने TDS नहीं काटा तो इट्स अ केस ऑफ शॉर्ट डिडक्शन 40 ईयर में नॉट अलाउड maximum default of 201 interest वो भी सामने वाले ने पे कर दिया तो जो डिफॉल्ट हुआ है दैट्स का देने का इंटरेस्ट बैक तो दैट इज अ banks way you can manage your affairs in 194T as it stands today any
Taxable, if the partnership loan is taxable under presumptive basis, then also this clause is applicable.
so applicable है ना रिजर्व वालों को भी TDS applicable है सबका applicable so TDS को काटना नहीं है otherwise partners resolution to 194T there will be default of 201 will be affected interest लगेगा तो वो default हो इससे see otherwise TDS that way actually the assessing default by they are giving a credit के सामने वाले ने अगर tax pay कर दिया तो अभी not be treated as assessing default is a good provision according to me. Let us take an example. I have a partner who is a non-resident. So challenges, of course, I am not going to discuss. Anybody has any questions on 194T? अरे वाह, सबसे कम मैंने तो सोचा इसी पे दिन जाएगा. Yes.
We have not shown salary in the partnership. Because anyway, it is taxable in both the cases.
No problem.
And if there is a withdrawal of profits, whatever the capital withdrawal.
Yeah, that's right. If you are not paying revolution, not claiming any revolution 40B में तो कोई problem ही नहीं है.
No problem.
No problem. That's the best. But of course, obviously, people do pay revolution because you have a tax benefit, no? या फिर फ्लैट टैक्स ले जाए या फिर 12% तो टैक्स ही नहीं है. तो 12 लाख की तो सैलरी दोगे ना पार्टनर को, कोई भी देगा ना. Otherwise 35% फ्लैट क्यों देगा 30%? So revolution generally working. See, revolution is because of tax planning only. ऐसे भाई अगर एक्चुअली सैलरी लेना है तो कोई भी 40 का क्रॉस किया है इनकम टैक्स है
इसलिए 12 लाख का बेटा दूसरा तो क्यों नहीं देगा?
नहीं नहीं I see generally we are in a situation today with the topic but see we have to go by the scale we have to be 40 भी लॉस only 40 टैक्स का अगर एक्चुअली मुझे सैलरी देगा तो 40 भी क्यों डालूंगा दैट इज that cannot be subject to LOE pay I to pay वर्किंग पार्टनर सर इधर पूछ क्या करूं जनरली 40 के क्लॉज इसलिए डाले जाते थे कि वो एक्चुअल में सैलरी नहीं देना था इसको टैक्स में जितना बेनिफिट हो सकता है उतना ले ले एक्चुअल में सैलरी देने वाले कभी वो क्लॉजेस होते ही नहीं है
Distribution of profit.
But
allowable remuneration lesser than what we have given. There will again mismatch of income will come.
that will come and that you will have to explain it. You have no choice. One body given the adjustments हो सकता है your gross income and TDS would be difference. So that explanation will go. 100% will go.
So हर बार होगा ही.
वो होगा जब तक कि वो समझे जब तक they are trying to explain them. In fact they are trying to tolerate करें बताएं कि वो इनको abolish करो. वो माने और जैसे अब क्या है कल तो abolish की गई फिर हमने ये बोला 10% या 2% दे दिया पहले रेवेन्यू कम कर दो इससे तो भी ठीक है they will not do it according to me now I'm very sure so they will not do it in this country will have to live with that yes
Yeah, you need to get out of the riddles of cash method of accounting. Can we say that the regulation paid to the partners is the distribution of profit? There is no question of cash or accrual of anything.
नहीं तो भी हमेशा allow कैसे होगा
It's a part of my distribution of profits. By way of remuneration. And by way of
सर फाइनली जैसे कहते हैं उससे सैलरी में अभी आएगा क्वेश्चन होगा
Interest of capital we have paid in the end of the year.
तभी का तो इंटरेस्ट भी now included 194 लगेगा आपको ये हम इंटरेस्ट पीरियड नहीं काटते थे अभी काटना 194 3 बाकी को कुछ भी नाम का दो सब पे 194 कभी से करके दो इंटरेस्ट करके दो सैलरी करके दो यस
this remuneration is paid annually only and not monthly.
It's okay. You pick from 31st March and direct TDS, right? You can get question as I say, information was you cannot have a working partner salary completely dependent upon process. You pay it out. And the parents can be annual, based on the process. जैसे हम salary कैसे देते हैं annual को, चलो 10,000 रुपया fix, बाकी performance bonus. your performance के ensure करोगा. So my suggestion is to give some amount and direct TDS. So the budget for TDS is very up by more.
नहीं हो सकता है 1000 per month पे करेंगे and finally the quantum will be decided on 31st March and say by 30th April.
That's ideal. That's the most ideal way of doing it in my view.
What debit to the capital account state for the current account as a remuneration if you are making separately. Otherwise, whatever goes is the capital withdrawal.
Correct.
At the end, as a remuneration, you credit debit only on 31st March.
That would be it. Right? Yes. So, question is ambiguity. In case of non-resident partner क्या होगा? Non-resident partner है तो क्या होगा? बनाएंगे फोर किया बनाएंगे फाइव. The non-resident partner बहुत कैसे कर सकता है? वर्किंग पार्टनर हो सकता है क्या?
It's not allowed.
आजकल सब कुछ ऑनलाइन ही है. Work from home. So 195 or 194. Okay. So then obviously this is just a TDS penalty provision. Practically I have tried to cover all the sections somewhere I have touched it. So I have covered my session on TDS basically. If anybody has any specific questions, yes, I will just say yes.
Question about the main power supply contract. So in that contract, X and Y, they made a contract that I will take the interview, it will be waiting in your account. I will pay you, you will pay for the exact amount, plus 10% to you.
Solution. Solution रहेगा तो ऐसे क्या है sir?
That means is, TDS will be your gross amount or only service?
It should be on a gross amount, not value. See, question is, if you are leaving any solution,
then it's not a reimbursement. तो 100 rupees मैंने रिक्रूट किया मैंने पे किया रजिस्टर पे करो 100 प्लस क्या है
Is a recruited by in some way they are working
एम्प्लॉय
and I am paying as a manpower supervisor. He is writing on my payroll. He is deciding the salary. He is giving me exact salary. I have to pay exact that amount, but 10% will be margin.
Then that is should be your margin. So you pay 8% separately to him and you pay directly to an employee.
It's come to my account and I pay to employees.
You pay to an employee. No, that's what I'm saying. It includes 10% to the staff. No, that's what. Then there won't be a TDS. It's not a reimbursement of externals.
Actually, TDS is coming more than my service.
हो सकता है because sale of services sale of service
Hello. But, hello. Yes, sir.
One recently received under 194 JP professional fees, but it is received in April and TDS is deducted. But at the time, we do not know whether we are going to receive the fees or not because, so what will be the fees are usually taken?
No, so BTS will not be deducted.
TDS deducted.
But we have not any. But if you go back to TDS, suppose TDS को very important. There is actually a form available where you can carry that TDS to next line member. And whenever you actually receive that income, तो सिक्योर के साथ TDS को match करो, तो दोनों offer करो trade income. You can do it. But yes.
Just a personal opinion, can ICI represent for the 26 QC excess TDS deducted by people to directly to
We have already done.
Yes.
We have already done that. I'll tell you that on the excess TDS direction, they are not allowed that the claim itself. Because they go and that's the issue, no?
But yes, the process.
I know. So they will go and take that deducted 12% to this CM was उसको refund दे दिया जाएगा और हम चाहते हैं कि आप हमको अलग कर दो right now we have already done this. So yes.
there is an office rent which is being given office rent given to the landlord. The landlord is safe. There is a property number 1 and 2 and both of them belong to one landlord. The rent is 55,000 per month, example. So is it that we should deduct TDS or not? Because 50,000 per month का limit है. So 35, it is for deduct your for property. If landlord से मत deduct करो, I pay for safety deduct करो. Yes, because
It's a sale landlord. What is the issue?
landlord CA से नहीं आएगा because for property
They can't be directed.
So there are two queries. They're related to property. There is a sale transaction of over 3 crore rupees, two parties, 1 crore 50 lakhs, 1 crore 50 lakhs got two sellers. In that PAN and Aadhaar was not linked in one party. So the seller, so the purchaser directed one person based on the PAN card.
20% का डिमांड आ गया.
अभी 25 दिन के बाद में एक पार्टी को 20% का डिमांड आ गया. अभी वो बाहर बोलता है कि this your responsibility and all that stuff. How to rectify that?
20% का डिमांड आ गया या तो लीक करो और पूछ लो.
लीक कर जो है तो वो लीक करोगे तो सब लीक तो नहीं करेगा. वो बोलता है हाँ एक महीने के पहले नोटिस आ गई और फिर उसमें अनफॉर्चुनेटली थर्ड पार्टी में सीए में कुछ डेट चेंज किया तो वो ऑफिसर बोलता है कि मेरे को डॉक्यूमेंट्स दो. बेसिकली हाउ टू रेक्टिफाई दिस मिस्टेक बिकॉज़ ट्रांजैक्शन कंप्लीटेड मनी यूज क्लोज अभी 20% में 30 लाख रुपए होता है तो हु इज गोइंग टू बेयर एंड हाउ टू डू द
You have to write to the commission TDS for rectify that cases demand.
बट
The number of days are not today.
okay, second question. With regard to the prepaid SIM card, there's a case law 1213 SSS Media. वो prepaid cards के हिसाब से जो total transactions होता है, commission को 0.10 पैसा या 10-20 rupees per card.
उसके बाद TDS आएगा.
लेकिन पूरे amount पे TDS card पूरा
नहीं लगेगा. TDS नहीं लगेगा. कमीशन जो भी लगेगा उसको ही लगेगा. That was one of the questions which I think.
उस commission के base पे income commission पे बताया हुआ है. लेकिन TDS पूरे पे काटने के कारण वो पूरा अमाउंट पे एडिशन हो.
अच्छा TDS धारा है
Now, paper appeal में हो रहा है, the company is also closed of the SIM card. So how to complete that assessment, demand back पे आ गया है. ITAT से demand clear, statistical ground पे. So how to rectify the TDS and the demand also.
No, so of course it is an appeal authority. Then obviously you can represent it before the assessing officer, given the fact that this is my income ultimately.
But the TDS has closed the business, no, it's 2011.
तो दोस्तों क्या हो गया? Still they can always you can find the information from the investigation. We have to do that. There's no choice. Those guys. But thank you very much. Thank you. That's it. It should not be done. The CCTV is only in two. Because actual portion was kind of problem was with the rent problem. So usually what you get the problems which was never taxable, you get a rent and you get a tax. It won't translate yeah. See, issue may not have been raised. There will be always a purpose. Purpose is always a purpose. Now, I think there was no dispute about purpose. There was always a dispute regarding the rent problem. That whether TDS is taxable or not. On purpose also. Developers purpose will be placed like that. I think so they should not be. It should be those. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's what he is saying. That's what we are trying to represent that. So city credit you only putting like a why have you go and take and refer? The regulator will have to fix stable. Let me tell it completely. That they trying to represent. I will something good doing. Yes, please.
So there are many NRIs or any property in Bombay, they're taking your time. What happens is that the person who's taking your time is not all that person is NRI. Because what he does is he doesn't mention in the agreement, I am not sitting and take there. What are the consequences of that? Because what happens is that the person who is taking it in wrong, doesn't know that the person is.
So he's not getting what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I agree with
I
that.
agree, yes.
No, that's okay. When he's taking, what people should take a declaration in the agreement itself that I am a resident or a non-resident. So I'll go based on that declaration. So at least I not be treated assessing.
Second question.
I'll just.
Second question. A very genuine question. I got a friend who is an NRI. Now she's a doctor in US. Her profession, what has happened is that her fingerprints are not coming. Now she has got a property in Bombay. Now she's giving it on rent. Now she cannot register because her fingerprint doesn't work. And what she has done is that जैसे बोला कि तुम्हारा लिस्ट है तुम्हारा आईकॉन डाल दो. I know this is what. So what has happened is that husband has entered into agreement with his PAN number. Property is owned by the wife. She cannot make an agreement because of a fingerprint. Husband ने entry कर दिया. Now question is that TDS जो काटता है.
हस्बैंड ने काटे यहाँ पे रिटर्न पे करके वहाँ पे और करना वो नहीं अब तो ट्रांसफर होता है ना कहीं ना अब उसका मैं ट्रांसफर करूँ ना तो वो भी होता है क्योंकि ट्रांसफर इनकम आउट में ट्रांसफर पीरियड हो गया यू कैन डू दैट I'll tell you. I'll just finish. Sorry. Facebook में आप अगर एड प्रोड्यूस करते हो और उसके ऊपर अगर कोई हिट करना तो पहले सबसे कौन सा एड होगा एडवर्टाइजमेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का 194C तो 194C का तो 194C में है ना ऑप्शन कहाँ पे आई थिंक एजेंसी फेसबुक में तो आपको यू विल हैव टू टॉक टू फेसबुक यू विल हैव टू टॉक टू वेंडर ओनली क्या भाई वेंडर को ही आप टॉक नहीं तो भाई आई यूनाइट अ वेट टू हिम बिफोर मेकिंग द मूवमेंट दैट वाज TDS is asking I have to do that otherwise we will give you a certificate that no TDS is asking
They are doing quarterly. How many years there is a Google, like Google and Facebook, both are following the same photo.
okay
After the quarter, the next day, just
yeah no according to me no 194 extra applicable नहीं है उसके ऊपर judgment है question है whether 194C will be applicable
my knowledge it should not. नहीं होना चाहिए पेमेंट गेटवे तो नहीं होना on contractor no rent because the company does
From both questions, please.
Correction it is क्या होगा दूसरे नहीं किया था there are some outstanding shown there, they are not able to file correction now. So what is the consequence for them?
you should approach commissioner for rectification. You can try 264.
Madam, please.
क्या करेंगे 364
कुछ ऑर्डर ही नहीं तो कैसे नहीं वो तो ऑर्डर डिमांड क्या है उसको
ऑर्डर को 64 में अप्लाई
सर टाइम है अभी तो 10 11 12 13 का सकता है तो टाइम भी एक्सपायर हो गया 12 के लिए
There's no necessary ID to do so. Yeah. Yes. अभी 30 अब तो इसके जो है ना रोड कर दिया होगा ना हाँ बराबर है लास्ट डे में क्या क्यों स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं अब नहीं करेंगे कर रहे हैं अरे नहीं कर रहे Technically, yes. That's all we know. Because what is happening, nobody is detecting it. Yes. कोई कर ही नहीं पा रहा है because you are not able to actually control it and यहाँ पे पेमेंट चले हो जाते हैं if you direct 0.1 they not understand only तो because practically this difficulty is not
दिखाना चाहिए था representation
they make sure 0.1 to be set completely 1.1 to 1 it was factory transaction not election of the deal now you already have a transaction pending to GST there's no same process और आप इसमें मैच कर दो आपके AI सिस्टम पूरा GST का रिकॉन्सिलिएशन इधर आप एंट्री दे देते हो why you say that so idea is that so thank you very much Vankali thank you
Thank you, Thank you, Piyush sir. Thanks. Our Piyush sir is always available for us. So you may ask question anytime to him. Before we break, one necessary announcement. Friends, I start MSME and Startup Conclave 2025 at Sahara Star on 26th and 27th June. अभी तक बहुत सारे मेंबर्स ने ज्वाइन नहीं किया हुआ है एंड फ्रेंड्स थ्रू देवीनगर स्टडी सर्किल there is a group discount of 10% to every members. Fee is only rupees 4,000 for 2 days, where lunch, breakfast, high tea, always available for 2 days. Wine in large. There is a short video. And members will. Then friends, request all of you, please be seated till the vote of thanks. We have just concluded an extremely insightful and enriching session on practical issue in TDS. I am sure each one of us will agree that today's session not only clarified many of our doubts, but also gave us a valuable practical takeaway that we can apply in our professional work. For vote of thanks, I request our deputy convener to please give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Convener sir. Good morning, dear members. It is my privilege to give a vote of thanks for well-known personality in our CA fraternity. Like Ankushji mentioned, he was lucky to have schooling and college with Piyushji. But so far as I know him, he's a very humble, down-to-earth personality. So I can say that only. And thank you for giving us an enriching session on practical aspects of TDS provision with applicable tribunal and court rulings. So on behalf of JB Nagar CA Study Circle, I propose a hearty vote of thanks to our learned speaker, and also would like to thank all the members and admin staff for their work. Thank you. And I request all members, please be seated for second session also. It is a very good session. So post breakfast, please have be attend this session.